Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called The Remnant, written by Slow AD 2584. The mining vessels jumped into the asteroid belt. The crews were nervous and cautiously spread out to begin mining the astounding concentrations of high-grade iron and ultra-pure, almost refined minerals within. This warm planetary body and the resource-rich debris belt that now circled the star was said to be, if you can believe it, haunted. While modern spacefaring species typically decry such superstitions, the numbers don't lie. Hundreds of ships that have tried to mine this belt had vanished and were occasionally discovered torn to shreds. There was something lurking amongst the asteroids. No one had ever so much as caught a bird capture of it, though, and no transmissions ever get out of an attack. It's just that sudden and brutal. But the belt was fantastically rich, and many mining conglomerates deem it worth the risk and hazard pay to send occasional expedition in regardless. The large mining barges, looking like long cylinders split with a gap down the center, began surveying the pay dirt. Their survey scans sweeping out in wide swaths through the rubble in a dark, shadowed part of the field. A survey beam swept over a machine. It looked like a farm combine mixed with an excavator, with backhoe arms and scoops in a jangled mess. Maybe a bit of a cargo plane was visible in there as well. There was movement in the machinery, drifting cables and hoses, hydraulic lines flailing in slow zero-G oscillations. It appeared to be a gradual accumulation of debris and scrap machinery, drawn together over centuries into a gravitic pile. A power cable exposed end waved gently amid the girders and struts, and brushed against the frame with a high-voltage spark. There was a flicker of light on one of the LCD displays, a momentary blip of green monocolored text. A hydraulic piston twitched, and the machine came to life. Lights flickered on, pumps chugged and groaned to life, solar panels twitched and snapped to align with the sun. Hydraulic, steam, plasma, and hydroacetylene flames spurted, and the entire mess ceased its slow tumble and stabilized and turned slowly to face the distant mining fleet. Within the cockpit of the ancient air transport craft, deep within the center of the mass of the machinery, there sat a skeletal, mummified corpse of a human. Arms crossed over his chest, gripping his seat harness, head bowed down, chin to chest, its mummified jaw clenched in a bare-toothed snarl. Around the seated figure, the display screen started to flicker and stutter to life. Radar displays, telescope images, and other data began to present all around the body. Cabin vents started to hiss in vaporous air, heaters began glowing to life, and the cabin lights smoothly brightened the cabin. The light revealed the scene of a madman. Angry scribbles and scratches on every single exposed surface. Tally marks in the thousands scratched as if keeping count of something. A crude crayon drawing of a blue and green world breaking apart under the beams of long cylinder ships with a gap down the center. Angry letters, never forget, arcing over the drawing of the world being destroyed. As the cabin warmed up and the air pressure started to build, alarm klaxons could be heard, and rotating red and white strobe lights started to blare around the corpse of the human. Alarm displays showing fuel 11%, power reserves 9%. As the random mass of machinery revealed itself to be more and more of an actual functional craft, as if the machinery had a memory of what an intact machine used to be, and this was a literal ghost of a machine revealing itself. A powerful jolt of electricity struck the pilot. Then again and again, the vapor of breath emerged from the clenched teeth of the body. The hand started to slowly creak open, then slammed to the throttle and yoke controls with the violent speed of shocked muscle memory as the pilot's eyes shot open and he raised his head. The foggy, gray eyes blearily looked around the cabin in confusion, taking in the low percent numbers on the displays. The pilot grew more confused. Seeing the crayon drawings of the destroyed world, his eyebrows hardened, then glanced at the radar displays and telescope images of the same style of ship. The eyes literally burned with fury. The throttle was hammered to a full 100% emergency war order thrust, and the mass of the machinery of the Remnant rocketed forward. From the bridge of the lead mining barge, alarms blared. Radars revealed a strange mass on intercept. As the comms tried to warn the other ships, upon opening the channel, screeches and electronic wails of electric guitars, EDM crunching bass drops and throaty death metal roars bellowed out from all the speakers, all channels violently overridden with a whiteout, smothering jamming signals of astonishing strength. The angry sounds of a remembered Earth were heard once more. The captain ordered the ships to break mining ops and make immediate retreat, but one of the mining barges had already detonated, pierced by some titanic rusty riveted steel girder. It appeared to be an apple impaled by a jagged giant climbing piton. The captain stared blankly in horror at the sheer scale of the violence he just witnessed. What could have propelled such a massive thing so violently to utterly puncture and tear an entire barge apart? The amount of newtons alone were... But then two other barges that started to evade erratically crashed into each other in their panic, trying to avoid something. And then he saw it. A blood drained from his face. The stories were real. This was the ghost. It wasn't a haunting, but rather a monster inhabiting this belt. He had to send word. The two ships, buckled and crumbled together a bit, were circled by this thing. An anchor-like hook was snagged on one ship, and a giant chain was being dragged by the strange ship. As it circled, the two craft lashing out and hammering the ships with large hydraulic backhoe arms like some angry gorilla, tearing savage holes as it swooped around, then pulled the chain violently as it lurched towards another ship, like a predator. The chain pulled tight, then clean through both craft, never intended to endure such abuse. The chain tore free and whipped behind to the marauding ship and appeared to be reeled back in. In moments, this ship destroyed 3 mining barges, like they were tissue paper. The remaining barges began to open fire on the ship with their point defense turrets. But the turrets had little to no effect on the heavy steel construction of the ship. It appeared to be 3/4-inch refined plate steel over most of it. Within the Remnant, the alarm display numbers were getting critical. Fuel, 5%. Power, 3%. Lance capacitors, 40%. The leathery, shriveled thumb flipped up the guard covering the trigger and pressed it into death grip. The throttle arm remained pressed to the firewall and never shifted. A beam of blue-white energy launched out from the strange ship, a titanic beam weapon apparently salvaged somehow from a fleet battlecruiser, having no business being in such a small craft, with no obvious means of powering it. The beam remained on as it lashed around for an astonishingly long time before fading away, dying in a sputtering failure within the Remnant ship, the structural beam surrounding the weapon glowing yellow-white hot after the immense release of energy. The Remnant was taking fire as the lance was being fired, and tumbled and rolled from its hits it was taking. All said and done, the lance weapon had sliced through 3 more craft in its tumbles. Only the captain's barge remained, as it was throttling away at best speed out of the asteroid belt, trying to get to a jump point. The captain knew he wasn't going to make it. The ghost, the monster, appeared to not be significantly damaged even after taking constant fire and burning out a capital ship lance weapon as it vectored in pursuit of the barge. The captain tried to send a warning again, but the roaring and screeching across all EM bandwidths had never ceased. Nothing was getting out through that mess of whatever it was. The good news is the ghost ship appeared to be overheating. Within the Remnant, alarms were screeching. Overheat critical 600%, fuel 1%, power 2%, failure imminent. Radiator vanes from the Remnant's belly were glowing white hot, and the pilot veered the ship to scrape the hot fins across, then down, then tumbling, thrashing, tearing down into the remaining barge. The captain died as the barge lost all power from the collision, and the structure failed around the bridge, venting him to space. He never got word out, never got close. No one will continue to know of the ghost, of the monster, of the Remnant. The Remnant, now deeply embedded within the tumbling wreckage of the final barge, finally started to falter, to flicker. Within the control cabin, amid critical warnings and the fading displays and dying lights, the mummified hand of the pilot reached out to scratch 7 more tally marks onto the exposed surfaces of the cabin, before crossing his arms across his chest, gripping his seat harness, bowing his chin to his chest, just as all the power flickered off into sudden, inert darkness. The remnant drifted away. The slow process of mechanical witchery began its decades, centuries-long process of maintenance/repair/refuel/recharge. As the drifting wreckage floats away in the distance, an asteroid passes into view, with the face of a raised arm of the Statue of Liberty revealed embedded within it. End of story. Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Bushmaster 177, Henry the Red, Caspar Arnholtz, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Elijah Silvercross, Dragoon WRE, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.